I would like to request the panel to come on the stage. Admiral Shahid Karimullah Sahab, Lieutenant General Retired Moinuddin Haider Sahab, Ambassador Shahid Amin Sahab, Sayyid Shua Nabi Sahab, Dr. Huma Baqai, and of course, the author, Dr. Junaid Ahmed. Please come on the stage.
کچھ دیکھنے کا موقع ہوا کہ
نہیں ابھی اچھا میں نے تھوڑا سا دیکھا لیکن میں نے سوچا آپ کا انٹرو مجھے اسی سے ملا تو تھینک یو سو مچ
آئی ایم سو گریٹفل کہ آپ نے اتنی شارٹ نوٹس پہ ایکسیپٹ
نو تھینک یو مائی Assalamu alaikum. I'm your host for the evening, Shaheen Salahuddin. I would request Qari Sahab to kindly come on the stage and please recite Surah. Thank you.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم هو الله الذي لا إله إلا هو عالم الغيب والشهادة هو الرحمن الرحيم هو الله الذي لا إله إلا هو الملك القدوس السلام المؤمن المهيمن العزيز الجبار المتكبر سبحان الله عما يشركون هو الله الخالق البارئ المصور له الأسماء الحسنى يسبح له ما في السماوات والأرض وَهُوَ الْعَزِيزُ الْحَكِيمُ. Translation. He is Allah, beside whom the all-knower of the unseen and the seen. He is the most gracious, the most merciful. He is Allah, the King, the Holy, the one free from all defects, the giver of security, the watcher over his creatures, the Almighty, the Compeller, the Supreme. Glory to be Allah. High is He above all that they associates as partners with Him. He is Allah, the Creator, the Inventor of all things, the Bestower of forms. To Him belong the best names, all that is in the heavens and the earth. Glorify, and He is the Almighty, the All-Wise. Sadaqallahul Azim.
Jazakallah. I welcome you all on behalf of the Chairman and Members Board of Governors of Karachi Council of Foreign Relations. As you all know, today is the book launch, Creation of Bangladesh by Dr. Junaid Ahmed. December is a sad month. For many Pakistanis, but I can say for all Pakistanis, it reminds them of the most tragic episode of Pakistan's history. Not only Pakistan lost half of the country, but for many it also lost its honor. The author of this book, Dr. Junaid, is an accomplished academician, researcher, and a prominent management consultant of Pakistan. He studied at Concordia and McGill University, Canada. He has 2 decades of teaching experience at the university level courses, executive level courses, and programs both in Canada and Pakistan. Also recently, he authored 2 textbooks in the area of commerce and economics. He has touched a very sensitive and controversial subject. And the reason I'm saying this, that this is a controversial subject, in the words of Sharmila Bose, the past half century has been dominated by the narrative of one side only, unquote. Like all good books, there'll be a lot of analysis and a lot of critical analysis on this book. But the ultimate judgment lies with the reader. I now invite Admiral Shahid Karimullah for the welcome address.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Distinguished guests, members of the Diplomatic Corps, esteemed speakers, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum. I, as chairman of Karachi Council on Foreign Relations, on behalf of Karachi Council for Foreign Relations, welcome you all in today's launching of the book Creation of Bangladesh, Myths Exploded, by none other than but Dr. Junaid Ahmed, who is also a member of our council and a close friend of all. Here I would like to appreciate the Board of Trustees, KCFR, for approving that we extend support and facilitate Dr. Junaid to launch this book. This is not the first time we are doing it. We have supported our members for such events in the past as well. I also avail this opportunity to appreciate the efforts of Mr. Zubairi and his staff in undertaking all arrangements and organizing the event in such a respectable manner. I am happy that KCFR is actively supporting its members to write books, research papers, and the subsequent launching and publication. Believe me, writing books or research paper is not an easy task. Dr. Junaid, please accept our heartiest congratulations on this auspicious occasion. About 2 months back, he had sent the draft of the book to me to write my comments because I am a veteran who actually actively participated during the 1971 war. I've given those comments to him. They are with him. But here I would like to share some of the extracts from that comments of mine, if you don't get bored. While reading the book under review, Creation of Bangladesh, Myths Exploded, I went back into the past and had nostalgic memories of my experiences of 1971 debacle, in which I not only participated as a young 20-year-old officer of the Pakistan Navy, but am witness to many happenings of this period of Pakistan history. Much that I would like to forget, many of our wrongdoings and incorrect decisions, which nobody can eradicate, because history is permanent. History is there to learn lessons from, but unfortunately, this is not happening in Pakistan. This aspect has been brought out very loudly and clearly in his concluding remarks by the author in this book, warning that the Indian pattern of things in Balochistan are very similar to what it followed during separation of East Pakistan from West Pakistan. Then I had written in my remarks my experiences when I visited Bangladesh as Chief of Naval Staff. I think that will interest you. The last time I visited Bangladesh was in 2004 as Chief of Naval Staff on the invitation of CNS Bangladesh Navy. I was accorded full protocol and received warmly. There was a motive behind it because they were interested that we need to help them in setting up their submarine service. And also maybe because Khalda Zia was the Prime Minister and not Hasina Wajid at that time. However, on some occasion, I found former CNSs of Bangladesh Navy quite sarcastic and rude when speaking about Pakistan. Similarly, as per the program, I visited the monument of the unknown soldier, where after the visit, I declined to write my remarks in the books. I thought if I write my remarks, they will be very adverse and rude. So I just got up from the table, not writing anything in the book. Although the President of Bangladesh received my call, but my overall impression was that the general public of Bangladesh is not inclined towards rebuilding friendship with Pakistan, nor were they very satisfied with their relations with India. This is important. They were not very satisfied with the relations in India. Talking about the book, the author has described the causes and pointed out those responsible for the tragedy in details. In fact, today morning in the TV, it was coming, people talking that we have not yet pinpointed who was responsible for all this tragedy. And we need to pinpoint that. I don't know. I think we all know who is responsible and who was responsible. His comment, the author's comment in this respect are fair and factual. I agree with him that the major binding force between the two people was the common religion, the religion of Islam. Otherwise, due to the vast difference in language, culture, traditions, etc. between West Pakistanis and East Pakistanis, the separation appeared inevitable. If it would not have happened in 1971, it would have happened later. Towards the end, I would like to say that the book is impressive because of the vast data collected, which as per my experience and knowledge is based on facts and not on hearsay, proven with authentic documents, and above all, the comments and views of the author are fair, unbiased, and rational. The author has highlighted the faults committed by both sides in a very honest and forthright manner. I consider the book has done justice to the title and meets the aim and objectives of the author in all respects. The myths that we Pakistanis are confronted with at both national and international forums have been dealt and countered with sound reasoning. The book is a valuable addition for correct perspective of the history of Pakistan. It is an ideal read and reference for our history scholars and researchers. I recommend it to be an essential reference book in all major libraries in Pakistan and international institutes, especially in armed forces, staff colleges, and war colleges. The National Defense University, think tanks, and institutes carrying out research. Gentlemen, during my stay during the war in 1971, where I was seriously wounded in action and then taken as prisoner of war and then was repatriated to Pakistan after 11th month in the prisoner of war camps. The main lesson to this day I remember, and I'll never forget it, that I learned during that stay was losing and surrendering one's independence and sovereignty is the most embarrassing, humiliating, shameful, insulting, and a disgusting experience. We must always pray to Allah to keep Pakistan an independent sovereign state and provide and guide our leaders and people not to repeat the selfishness and the blunders that we displayed and practiced in our past. With that, gentlemen, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's 16 December today, 2 years APS attack. I'll request you for 1 minute silence and prayers for those children and the families. وہ جنازے بہت بھاری ہوتے ہیں جو بچوں کے ہوتے ہیں، تو آپ سے درخواست ہے کہ ان بچوں کے لیے، ان کے خاندان کے لیے 1 منٹ کی خاموشی اور دعا. I'll request now General Moinuddin Haider to kindly come and express his views and his analysis on the book. General Moinuddin Haider, former governor, former home minister. Thank you.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I've had the pleasure of going through this book, researched and written by Dr. Junaid. I think he has done justice by collecting all this valuable data. Unfortunately, most of the books which came on this subject of creation of Bangladesh were written in Bangladesh. They were one-sided and not balanced. And truth was hidden by design. And I think Indians took they have almost rewritten the history of East Pakistan and Bangladesh. But now, as the dust settles down on this tragic issue, so more and more people are having the audacity to research and come out with the facts with moral courage on their side. And Ms. Bose's book, I think, is one such book in direction. And Dr. Junaid's book will also be taken as an authentic research. And those myths, which, Bengalis say this happened and we say this did not happen, which have been going on, all those myths have been enumerated here and they have been analyzed, and he's given his version. So this will, I think, dispel many doubts and will help the reader in getting a balanced judgment of the whole issue. But I just want to say a few things with some background. Pakistan's constitution could not be made in the first 9 years. We took too long. And there were 2-3 reasons. One reason was there was 55% population of Bangladesh and 45% population of then West Pakistan. So what should be the formula? If it is a one man, one vote, possibly East Pakistan would possibly be ruling West Pakistan all the time, which the feudal landlords here and the power bases here were not ready to adhere to. Second reason, which is though not directly connected to this, was that how much Islam to be put in the constitution. Has this country been made for, in the name of Islam, La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah, Pakistan ka matlab kya? Ye nara Pakistan ke موومنٹ میں تو نہیں تھا, بعد میں آ گیا. اور پھر جو لوگ جنہوں نے بہت سے اپوز کیا تھا, ہاؤ مچ اسلام ٹو پٹ, اس میں یہ کشمکش میں 9 سال گزر گئے. In those days, Bangladesh के जो leaders थे, towering personality like Fazlur Rahman जिसने पाकिस्तान रेवोल्यूशन पेश किया कायद-ए-आज़म की सदारत में, उनके साथ आपको पता है यहाँ क्या मसले पेश है, नाज़िमुद्दीन के साथ क्या पेश है, उनके साथ क्या पेश है, बोगरा साहब को लाया गया, तमीज़ुद्दीन जो स्पीकर थे वो भी कोर्ट में गए और कोर्ट ने क्या फैसला किया, ये तमाम बातें आपके नॉलेज में होंगी कि बांग्लादेश के इस किस्म की चीज़ों से वो किस तरह बददिल होते चले गए। कुछ तो जेन्युइन ग्रीवेंसेस थे। वजह यह है कि ईस्ट पाकिस्तान की अगर हिस्ट्री पढ़ें 300-500 साल की, हर वक्त वहाँ कहत रहता था, हर वक्त वहाँ साइक्लोन्स रहते थे, और डेवलपमेंट जो थी वो बहुत ही लो लेवल की थी उनकी, और जो ब्यूरोक्रेसी और बाकी जो स्ट्रक्चर्स होते हैं एक मॉडर्न स्टेट के, एज ए स्टेट और एन एरिया डेवलप्स, कि कितने लोग पुलिस में ट्रेंड हैं, ब्रिटिश राज के ज़माने में कितने ICS ऑफिसर्स हैं, so they hardly had anything actually. And let me dare say, which this big book brings out quite vividly, is that during Ayub Khan's era, a lot was done for East Pakistan. Never, I think, in history of East Pakistan was so much development that took place in those days. एक पार्लियामेंट इधर है तो एक पार्लियामेंट ढाका में है, एक न्यूक्लियर कनूप इधर है तो एक उधर न्यूक्लियर स्टेशन है तारापुर में, पेपर का सबसे बड़ा वहां पर जो है प्रोजेक्ट लगा. सो फॉर द फर्स्ट टाइम डिस्ट्रिक्ट्स वर कनेक्टेड. So in the constitution they said we will have parity. We will consider we are both 50-50% in everything. And that's formula West Pakistan ceased to have its 4 provinces and joined hand. And Bengalis always thought that they were not getting a fair deal. It takes time. If you want 50% representation in the army, it will take you time to develop that culture, that thought, etc. Or if you want to have doctors, if you want to have engineers, if you want to have this, it will take you time. So everywhere I remember in those days they used to say, they'll go to Atomic Energy Commission, they say how many Bengalis here, how many West Pakistanis here. ये चीज़ हमेशा से उनके दिल दिमाग में रहती थी कि फेयर डील नहीं है, और वो समझते थे उनका जूट जो है उससे जो फॉरेन एक्सचेंज आता है उससे पाकिस्तान चलता है, और पाकिस्तान वो मुजीब रहमान साहब कहते थे मुझे इस्लामाबाद की सड़कों से पटसन की बू आती है, बू आती है, दिस इज व्हाट ही यूज्ड टू से. तो कुछ उनके परसीव्ड इनजस्टिसेस थे, कुछ वहाँ के लोगों ने और हिंदुस्तान ने, इंडिया ने एक बहुत सोची समझी पॉलिसी के तहत शुरू हुई में कि वी हैव टू अंडू पाकिस्तान, उसने वहाँ पर काम शुरू कर दिया था. अगरतला साजिश केस कोई फैंटेसी नहीं थी, ये एक हकीकत थी. और जब उसको इस पर पकड़ लिया गया, अब आप में भी आपने देखा कि प्रूव हो गया कि अगरतला केस जो अयूब खान ने किया था बिल्कुल सही था. कहाँ लोग भाग कर गए, कौन लोग थे, कौन उनसे इंस्ट्रक्शंस लेते थे. लेकिन उनको भी उस वक्त के पॉलिटिशियन ने अयूब खान के कनपटी में एक किस्म की पिस्तौल रख के राउंड टेबल कॉन्फ्रेंस में मुजीब रहमान को रहा करवाया, एक्शन नहीं लेने दिया उसके खिलाफ. मैं एज इंटीरियर मिनिस्टर हमूदुर रहमान कमीशन कमेटी का एक कमेटी बनाई थी जनरल परवेज ने कि इसको हम पब्लिश करें कि ना करें पाकिस्तानी कौम के लिए. उसमें कैबिनेट सेक्रेटरी और फॉरेन मिनिस्टर वर मेंबर्स विद मी, एंड वी रिकमेंडेड कि इसको पब्लिश करें, हमारी गलतियां सामने आएं, हमको उससे सबक सीखना चाहिए, शर्मिंदा भी होना चाहिए. तो उस वक्त वो पब्लिश भी हुई थी. 1-2 लेसन जो हमारे सामने आए, जो हमने उस वक्त क्विक लेसन कैबिनेट को ब्रीफ किया. एक मुल्क में जो पॉलिटिकल पार्टीज होती हैं उनको मुल्क गिर होना चाहिए, उनकी जड़ें तमाम सूबों में होनी चाहिए, तमाम रीजन्स में होनी चाहिए. क्या रिजल्ट था जिसको हम कहते हैं 1970 के याह्या खान के इलेक्शंस, कहते हैं पाकिस्तान की हिस्ट्री के मोस्ट ट्रांसपेरेंट یا جسٹ الیکشنز تھے جس میں کوئی گھپلے نہیں ہوئے لوگ جو کہتے ہیں. کیا ہوا؟ کوئی عوامی لیگ کا ایک آدمی یہاں ویسٹ پاکستان میں ایک سیٹ نہ لے سکا, اور ایک یہاں کا نان بنگالی ویسٹ پاکستان کا ایک سیٹ اس پاکستان میں نہ لے سکا. کیا اس کا مطلب ہے؟ اس کا مطلب کنٹری تو ڈیوائیڈ ہو گیا. اس 70 کے الیکشن سے ہی یہ چیز سامنے آ گئی کہ وہ الگ ہیں تو ہم الگ ہیں. اس لیے وہ کہتے ہیں, بے نظیر کو کہتے تھے کہ فیڈریشن کی زنجیر, کہ تمام صوبوں میں تمام پارٹیوں کو ہونا ضروری ہے, وہ قوم کو سب کو فیڈریشن کو جوڑ کے رکھتے ہیں. ابھی بھی کچھ حد تک ہم نے اس وقت نہیں سیکھا ہے. انٹیریئر سندھ میں پیپل پارٹی ہے, اربن ایریاز میں متحدہ ہے, نون لیگ پنجاب اس کا قلعہ ہے, کے پی کے میں عمران خان صاحب ہیں وس مدر, اور بلوچستان میں اور کو سب کا. کوئی ایک پارٹی ایسی نہیں جو کہہ سکے چاروں صوبوں کے اندر جس کی جڑیں ہیں یا دفتر ہیں یا کام ہو رہا ہے. یہ سبق نہیں سیکھا. دوسرا سبق ہے انصاف کا, کہ آپ نے تمام ریجنز کے ساتھ انصاف کرنا ہے. چاہے پاور میں کوئی بھی ریجن ہو, پنجاب پاور میں ہو, بڑا صوبہ ہے, انصاف سب کے ساتھ کرنا ہے. اور جو ہم میں سے پیچھے رہ گئے ہیں, اکنامکلی انڈر ڈیولپڈ رہ گئے ہیں, ان کو زیادہ حصہ دینا تاکہ کم ٹائم میں وہ ایٹ پار آ جائیں. خواہ وہ بلوچستان ہو, کے پی کے ہو یا سندھ ہو, اور بڑے صوبوں کو اس سلسلے میں قربانی دینی چاہیے. بہت سوال پوچھا جاتا ہے, کون ذمہ دار ہے سقوط مشرقی پاکستان کا؟ سیاستدان کہیں گے یحییٰ خان اور فوج ذمہ دار ہے. They were at the helm of affairs. بہت سے لوگ کہیں گے کہ اس وقت کے سیاستدان جو ہیں, جنہوں نے ملک کو جوڑ کے نہیں رکھا, صحیح پالیسیاں نہیں بنائی, انصاف نہیں کیا, اس سے یہ لاوا پکتا رہا, وہ بھی ذمہ دار ہیں. کوئی کہے گا اگر بین الاقوامی سازشیں نہ ہوتی, روس کا 20 سالہ کونسل جنرل صاحب یہاں بیٹھے ہوئے ہیں, میں تاریخ کا ایک حقیقت بیان کر رہا ہوں کہ 20 سال کا جو معاہدہ سوویت یونین کے ساتھ ہوا تھا, اس سے ہندوستان کو شہ ملی, اور اس کو روس نے سپورٹ بھی کیا, سوویت یونین نے. اور اگر ہندوستان کی نیکڈ ایگریشن نہ ہوتی اور وہ کئی ڈویژن فوج لے کے نہ چڑھ دوڑتا ایسٹ پاکستان پر, مشرقی پاکستان کبھی بنگلہ دیش نہ بنتا. کافی حد تک پاکستان فوج نے جو شورش ہوئی تھی, جو یہاں پر بھی ہو رہی ہے, بلوچستان میں بھی آپ دیکھتے ہیں کبھی ہو رہی ہے, آج کل ٹیررزم کے روپ میں ابھر ہیں مختلف لوگ, اور فوج اس سے ڈیل کر رہی ہے اور کافی حد تک قابو پا رہی ہے. وہاں بھی قابو پا لیا گیا تھا. اس میں کوئی شک نہیں ہے ابھی کہ مکتی بہانی میں وہاں کی کوئی پیدا کوئی اپنی کوئی فریڈم موومنٹ نہیں تھی. ہندوستان کے ٹرینڈ کیے ہوئے سب لوگ تھے. تمام اس پہ بہت لٹریچر ہندوستان کے اندر خود لکھ دیا ہے. ان کا چیف کہہ رہا ہے, ان کا پرائم منسٹر کہہ رہا ہے, ہمیں اس بات کا معلوم ہے کہ یہ تمام چیز کھڑی کی گئی تھی, اور اس بہانے سے کہ چند مہاجرین ہمارے پاس آ گئے اور ہم ان کو کھانا نہیں کھلا سکتے, اس لیے حملہ کر کے ان کو واپس آباد کرو. ہمارے پاس تو 50 لاکھ یہاں مہاجرین افغانستان کے کب سے بیٹھے ہوئے ہیں, ہم کھانا کھلائے جا رہے ہیں, حملہ تو نہیں کر رہے ہم کہیں. تو یہ کچھ اسٹرے تھاٹس ہے میرے اس سبجیکٹ پر. اور اتفاق سے جو لوگ بنگلہ دیش میں بعد میں سین پر آئے, اس میں جنرل ارشاد تھے, جنرل ضیاء الرحمان تھے, جنرل خالد مشرف تھے, منظور تھے, جو اتنے بھی لوگ تھے, اتفاق سے ان سب کے ساتھ ہمارا پرسنل رابطہ رہا ہے. I have shared an office with General Zia ur Rahman as an instructor in the Pakistan Military Academy in 1969. ایک دفتر میں ان کی ٹیبل لگی تھی, میری ٹیبل لگی تھی. اور 69 میں جب ان کی ادھر ہی انجینئر اور ان کی پوسٹنگ چٹاگانگ میں آئی, تو ہی پٹ اپ اے نوٹس آن دا میس بورڈ کہ ہی از سیلنگ اے فیو آئٹمز بیفور لیونگ فار ایسٹ پاکستان. تو میں اور ایک میرے کولیگ, he went to Khalida Zia's and their house. I bought a table lamp and I bought a bookshelf. And my friend bought a sofa. And we gave the money and I said, our orderly will come and collect these items tomorrow. تو دوسرے دن جب میں اپنے کمرے میں گیا وجہ بیچلر, تو میں نے دیکھا اس زمانے میں چھوٹی سی بھی چیز خریدتے دل بہت خوش ہوتا تھا, تنخواہ کم ہوتی تھی. تو میں نے دیکھا ٹیبل لیمپ کونے میں لگا ہے, تو میں نے اپنے بیٹ مین سے کہا کہ ارے بھائی کدو یہ اس کو کم از کم بجلی تو جلا دیتا ہے, ہمارا دل خوش ہوتا ہے, ہم نے ایک چیز خریدی ہے. تو سپاہی کہنے لگا کہ یہ تو مجھے بھی معلوم ہے سر, لیکن خالدہ زیاد صاحبہ نے اس کا پلگ بھی کھینچ لیا, اس کا بلب بھی اتار لیا سر. دس از ٹرو اسٹوری آئی ایم ٹیلنگ یو. پھر جب جنرل ضیاء الرحمان گھر پر ریڈ ہوتی ہے جس پہ وہ بچ گئے تھے, پاکستان آرمی نے ان کو گھر ریڈ کیا تھا ٹو اپریہینڈ ہم, تو ان کے جو سامان میں سے وہ یہاں پر میجر ظہور الرحمان کا جو لگاتے تھے اپنے, اس زمانے میں کارڈ بورڈ پہ لکھ کر بھی ٹو سلپ اٹ انٹو دس اسٹیل کی جو پلیٹ ہوتی تھی, وہ میرے ایک دوست نے who raided that house sent me that میجر ظہور الرحمان ریٹن, وہ میرے پاس آج بھی موجود ہے گھر میں. خالد مشرف was a colleague. لیکن بیک ان 67 when we were there, وہ بنگالی ہمارے دوست ہم سے بولتے تھے کہ بھائی ہمارے پاس چکر لگا لو, تم نے چکر نہیں لگایا مشرقی پاکستان کا, بعد میں پاسپورٹ لے کر آنا پڑے گا. یہ باتیں 67 میں شروع کر دی تھی انہوں نے. دوست تھے ہمارے ساتھ پبلک اسکول میں 50s میں ساتھ پڑھے تھے, یہاں رہے تھے, انہوں نے ہمارا کنڈکٹ دیکھا تھا, لیکن یہ بات چیت شروع تھی. تو جراثیم موجود تھے. ایوب خان کا بھی خیال تھا کہ میں آئی ایم گیونگ دیم اے فیئر ڈیل, آئی ایم ڈوئنگ مائی بیسٹ جو ہو سکتا ہے ان کے اوپر لانے کے لیے اکنامکلی. لیکن وہ کہتا ہے زیادہ دیر, ان کی ڈائریاں جو انہوں کے بعد میں نکلی ہیں اس میں وہ کہتے ہیں 67 سے کہ جنوں کے آثار اس وقت واضح ہونے شروع ہو گئے تھے. تو میں ڈاکٹر جنید صاحب کو بہت مبارکباد پیش کرتا ہوں ایک بہت اچھا ریسرچ ورک کرنے کی اور یہ حقائق قوم کے سامنے لانے کی. امید ہے اس پر کاوشیں اور جاری رہیں گی. بہت شکریہ خواتین و حضرات.
Thank you, General Saab. Just want to add an incident, since I've recently come back from Canada. I had an opportunity to meet two Indian defense officers' wife there, who are in 80s. And very nicely she said, oh, ہم لوگوں کے میاں تو دھوتی پہن کے مکتی باہنی میں جاتے تھے بنگلہ دیش, اور دیکھو کیسے ہم نے بنا دیا تھا. So what you're saying now and what the others have said on the Indian side, yes, Mukti Bahini was partly Indian defense officers, combination of Indian defense officers and Bangladesh nationalists. I would like to invite Ambassador Shahid Amin now to come for his analysis of the book. Ambassador Shahid Amin.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Chairman, Karachi Council for Foreign Relations, General Muinuddin Haidar, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Today, 16 December, is a very sad day for all of us. Two great tragedies happened on this day: the fall of Dhaka and the massacre of innocent children in a school in Peshawar 2 years ago. But from tragedies, we should learn. Those nations which do not learn from their mistakes, as Napoleon, I think, said, those who do not learn from their mistakes are condemned to repeat those mistakes over and over again. So it's very fitting that on this occasion, when we remember the fall of Dhaka, this August gathering has assembled basically to launch the book of our friend and colleague, Dr. Junaid Ahmed, but more than that, to remember what happened at that time, why it happened, and try to make an assessment, an objective assessment of the events of those times. 45 years have passed since the fall of Dhaka. It's time for emotions to subside, reason to prevail, cool-headed judgment made. But unfortunately, the tendency in our country has been, by and large, to pretend that Dhaka never happened. We have moved on to other subjects. But as I said, this can be a grave mistake, because those very errors that led to the fall of Dhaka could be repeated again. I think Dr. Junaid has done a great service to the nation by writing this book, which is objective, well-researched, and tries to take up issues which are uncomfortable but must be raised. He has relied on good sources, quoted them at length, so we can say that this is a balanced book, a very important contribution to the literature on the subject. And I think the fact of the matter is that over the years, the narrative on Bangladesh has come either from India or from Bangladesh or from Western sources, and it is highly prejudiced. It is very anti-Pakistan. It tries to paint Pakistan as a devil. We are accused of all kinds of crimes and atrocities, and a one-sided picture is painted. And it was high time that a narrative of our own should have come in place, not based merely on emotions and flat statements, but on facts and research and objective arguments. And I think this is what Dr. Junaid has done, for which I think we should all be grateful for his labor for this country. It is not for himself, it is something very valuable for this country. Yes, 45 years have passed. There have been grave charges against Pakistan, misrepresentations, which he has rebutted. This accusation of 3 million being killed, although some Bangladeshi sources say 3 lakhs were killed and 3 million was an erroneous translation of 3 lakhs, and hundreds of thousands of women raped. These have been rebutted with very good sources, independent sources, not Pakistani sources, but sources from different countries, scholars, including Indian scholars, Indian sources, and Bangladeshi sources. And I think that carries much more weight than any flat statement that we can make. It's true, the narrative which is around makes little or no mention of the atrocities committed by the Mukti Bahini, the most heinous atrocities that were committed. And while it is extremely painful to go over those atrocities, since there is only a one-sided version in which the atrocities are squarely placed on the Pakistani troops and Pakistani side, or those who were pro-Pakistan, it was time that the truth about the atrocities committed particularly by the Mukti Bahini, which in many cases consisted of Indian soldiers masquerading as Mukti Bahini. So this has been done very well. And of course, he has traced years of Indian intrigue 1971 didn't happen suddenly. There were years of Indian intrigue, subversion, propaganda, through which the minds of many in Bengal, in East Pakistan, were affected. There was brainwashing going on over a period of time. And the main point always was that West Pakistan is dominating you, West Pakistan is stealing your resources, which again, I think, with the help of facts and figures, Dr. Junaid has rebutted, and General Saab also has mentioned a number of things we inherited in 1947. Take, for instance, the bureaucracy. What was the Pakistani bureaucracy? That the Muslims who were in the British Indian government who opted to join Pakistan. That was our bureaucracy. And it so happened there were very few Bengalis there. Economically, there were more development in West Pakistan than in former East Bengal. These were the facts that were inherited at the time of independence. It took time to overcome the deficiencies. For instance, in the services. I'm from the Pakistan Foreign Service, and I can say finally we had a 50-50 equation in the Foreign Service. But it took time, and I know that special concessions were given to East Pakistan people who were ranking 240 or 275 in the competition examination were allowed to enter the Foreign Service and the other services. So special concessions were given to make up for their shortages. Then, of course, finally, when the tragedy happened, there was outright Indian interference. Mrs. Indira Gandhi, the Prime Minister, went to Parliament the day after 26 March and announced full support for the Bangladeshi secessionists. A government in exile was set up. The Mukti Bahini was created. Openly training was offered. Every kind of moral and material support was given. So there is no doubt that India grossly interfered in Pakistan's internal affairs. And finally, it came to the war of December 1971, in which the small number of Pakistani troops were outflanked and surrendered. But where India succeeded was that it created an environment internationally that the support for the secessionists was a righteous cause, and that Pakistan was morally wrong. This is where we lost the battle. The fact of the matter is that we made terrible mistakes, and let us look at those mistakes. The mistakes were made both by the military government of General Yahya Khan, but also by the political leadership, in which the most prominent figure was Zulfikar Ali Bhutto. They must all be blamed. I know there is partisanship here, but on a occasion like this, the partisanship should be set aside and the historical facts must be stated. There was terrible military planning. General Niazi had a plan which was totally bankrupt. And I think within 3 days or 4 days of the fighting, the whole plan had collapsed. Misrepresentation was made by the government that Chinese help was around the corner, which was utterly false. In the book of Sultan Muhammad Khan, the then Foreign Secretary, there are several statements that the Chinese leaders made it absolutely clear that they are not going to be involved in the war. False statements were made. False statements were made that the 7th Fleet was on the way, whereas the Americans had never made such a commitment. So, we were living in a world of make-believe. The military generals had all kind of exaggerated ideas about what Pakistan was capable of doing militarily. It was not understood that we were facing a practically hopeless situation, trying to fight in a territory 1,000 miles away when the communication links had been broken, we had a very difficult air route and sea route via Sri Lanka. And India had all the advantages. So the military planning was awful and collapsed within a matter of days. But how about the political leadership? Once Mujibur Rahman had won a clear majority, the parliament should have been called and he should have been allowed to become the prime minister. That would have been much better than the surrender on 16 December 1971. But who stopped that? Mainly Zulfikar Ali Bhutto, who said, we'll break the bones of those who will go there. Who said, idhar hum, udhar tum. So the political leadership was also involved. The Pakistani public opinion was also involved. There was such a jingoistic spirit going on here. The Nara here was, crush India, which was living in a fool's paradise, given the circumstances. So, it is not only the military government which is responsible, the political leadership was responsible, even the masses in general were responsible, because a certain image was given to them, then when the war comes, we will take care of India. This was the narrative. But what happened is known to all of us. And then there was this fiasco at the United Nations Security Council. A Polish draft resolution was moved when everything looked like collapsing militarily in East Pakistan. I think 3 days or 2 days before the surrender took place, the Polish draft resolution was presented, under which an honorable or at least a face-saving formula was offered, that there will be a ceasefire, Pakistani forces will be asked to withdraw from East Pakistan, and people of East Pakistan will decide their future. This was 2 or 3 days before the surrender. Which was the better alternative? Accepting the Polish resolution or the surrender of 16th December? And who tore the resolution? Zulfikar Ali Bhutto. He tore the resolution. He decided the fate of Pakistan in a melodramatic gesture. So this is the way things have happened. And as I said, I know there is partisanship. But then, when it comes to a judgment of history, somewhere we have to be frank. We have to try to analyze what happened, why it happened, who was responsible. And then this Hamid Rahman Commission went through the exercise. The report was concealed until, as General Saab says, it was released, I think, in 2001 or 2002. No one was punished, although Hamid Rahman Commission had clearly specified those who were guilty. They included your top generals and some other people. They also included people who had been involved in grievous acts which could not be justified under the laws of war. Nothing was done. No one has been found responsible. The nation seems to have forgotten the tragedy of 1971. Why were those people not taken to account? Who broke up Pakistan? Who gave Pakistan, as somebody said, disgrace, dishonor? Nothing was done about them. In fact, they have prospered. If anything, they have prospered. So this is where I said, when mistakes are made, lessons have to be learned. Finally, I would like to just make 2 comments to find something positive out of this terrible tragedy. One was the Indian claim that the two-nation theory has been, as Mrs. Gandhi said, it has been sunk in the Bay of Bengal. There was gloating in India that the two-nation theory has failed with the fall of East Pakistan. But if you look at it dispassionately, if you look at the resolution, Lahore Resolution of 1940, it asks for the creation of independent sovereign states in northern, eastern, and eastern zones of India. Northwestern which is today's Pakistan, and eastern, which is today's Bangladesh. This was the original demand of the Lahore Resolution. And the creation of Bangladesh, a terrible setback, a grievous tragedy, does not go contradictory to the Lahore Resolution of 1940, which said independent sovereign states in eastern zones of India and in the northwestern zone of India. Bangladesh, whether you like it or not, Bangladesh remains a Muslim majority independent state. It did not merge with India. If it had merged with India, then the two-nation theory would have been discredited. So the fact that it remains a Muslim majority independent sovereign state is consistent with the Lahore Resolution and the two-nation theory. The second thing is, it should not be forgotten that Pakistan was created through a peaceful political movement reflecting the aspirations of the people with the full support of the people. And the democratic principle was clear. It has been clear that you can't keep a majority province in the union by force. This is clearly negating a democratic principle. The fact is, which is little recognized here, that there is something called Bengali nationalism. The Bengali aspirations were not appreciated and respected. Bengali culture, cultural values were derided and in fact opposed and condemned. So there was a grave value judgment, which was that East Pakistan had certain nationalistic aspirations, and they could have been contained in a formula which would have kept them part of Pakistan, but it would have required maximum autonomy, and that was not being denied to them. And that is why the demand for autonomy changed into the demand for secession. In fact, you can even say that this happened when the parliament was not called in session in March 1971. Because Mujibur Rahman was saying that I want to be Prime Minister of United Pakistan. Of course, he had the ambition that he would use the resources of United Pakistan to bring up East Pakistan economically and in other ways. So the democratic principle was clear. The majority province could not be kept by force. And if I may mention one particular incident, I was posted in New York in 1963, and the Consul General, my boss, was Ahmad Ali, who was younger brother of Muhammad Ali Bogra, the foreign minister. He told me that when the Quaid-e-Azam visited Dhaka in March 1948 and said in the Dhaka universities that Urdu will be the national language of Pakistan, and some students stood up and raised some protest, the Quaid-e-Azam at that time, according to the version which was given to me, and I have no doubt about its authenticity, the Quaid-e-Azam told the Bengali leaders that if this is the kind of sentiment in East Pakistan, he has no objection to East Pakistan becoming an independent country. He said this in 1948. So the father of the nation was absolutely clear that the union has to be based on consent. It cannot be forced. And even just before Pakistan was created, in July 1947, there was a move which Quaid-e-Azam supported, that there can be a united Bengal. Not East Pakistan need not be, East Bengal need not be a part of Pakistan. There can be a united Bengal. So the idea was not a new one. It had in some way it had the support of the founder of Pakistan. And finally, I would say another comment which perhaps may shock you, but I do believe this is one conclusion which can also be taken. It would have been much better that the events of 1971 had not happened. It would have been much better if East Pakistan had not been alienated. But in some way, as I believe Admiral Saab said that this was going to happen one day or the other. The fact is, after the separation of East Pakistan, some of the internal tensions of Pakistan have been removed. Throughout, from 1947 to 71, there was constant tension in the country, inner tensions about the relationship between East Pakistan and West Pakistan. And after the separation of East Pakistan and the emergence of Bangladesh, that internal tension has been removed. It should not have happened through the surrender of 1971. It could have been done voluntarily by consensus. So with these words, I conclude, and I thank Dr. Junaid Ahmad again.
Thank you, Shahid Amin Saab. I remember when I went to Dhaka a few years back in a conference, I had the opportunity to meet some professors. I interviewed Dr. Kamal Hussain, and that interview was telecast here. But the professors told me it depends who you are talking to if you want to know the correct version. If you're going to meet some Mukti Bahini people who have turned into professors and editors of the newspapers, you'll have a totally different version. And if you're going to speak to the other side, you'll have the totally different opinion. So whoever dominates the media, whoever dominates the intellect and books and university academics, their ideas and their views are expressed nationally and internationally. So I think Dr. Junaid has done a wonderful job that he here is writing on the creation of Bangladesh. Now I'll request Advocate Sean Nabi Saab, who is the Advocate of Supreme Court of Pakistan, and also who was in East Pakistan at the time when this incident happened. Sean Nabi Saab.
Mr. President, Your Excellencies, I'm a young man of 70, and I lived there in Dhaka from 69 to 71 as a student of Dhaka University, Haji Mohsin Hall. And I learned Bangla language over there. And I'm witness to the atrocities done to the non-Bengalis or the West Pakistanis or pro-Pakistan Bengalis with the hands of the Mukti Bahani, but it was not Mukti Bahani. It was the Indian Army in a camouflage of Mukti Bahani. And we came to know about the lesson. The first president of independent Bangladesh was our Vice Chancellor, Justice Abu Said Chaudhry. He became. When I entered into the room, they asked me in their language, "Apni Bangla jante paren? Jane?" "Yes, sir." "Ami ekto jani. I know a little bit." "Desher badi. From where you are?" "I'm from Mirpur Khas, Sindh." I told him, No. I would like to know originally from where you are." "I'm Sayyid Shu'aib Nabi," so I pointed out. I say, "My forefathers came with Muhammad bin Qasim in 712 or with Ahmad Shah Abdali. But from there we came to subcontinent, and now in Sindh, Babul Salam, we are living." The Vice Chancellor, see the mental level of a person who reached up to the top of a university. But the nationalism was so strong. So, मैंने कुछ दिनों के बाद वहाँ बंगला बोलनी शुरू की, खाचन, पिचन, जाचन, आचन, और उर्दू के जितने लफ्ज आते थे उसमें छन, छाना, चन, छन लगा दिया. So I can speak. The common Bengali was not in favor of creation of Bangladesh. They waited for more than a year. It was 7th December 1970. And with the permission of the chair, I would like to mention the national parties were there in the elections of 7th December 1970. and they were second position, number 2 position after Awami League. My one of best friend, Barrister Qurban Ali from Pabna, he got 56,000 votes. A little bit more than the person was Awami Leaguer. So the national parties are there, but they were not allowed because of the pre-planned and in such a way that except Nurul Amin and Tridev Rai of Chakma tribe, these were the 2 persons, and 160 seats were given to them. And at the Dhaka airport, when former king of Iran visited, President Yahya Khan was there. He introduced Sheikh Mujibur Rahman. He is our future prime minister. So they were thinking very clearly, and it was crystal clear that next prime minister of Pakistan will be this man. But it was not to be blamed to one person, one party, one group. As a whole nation, the media, the judiciary, the election commission, the army, the political parties, intelligentsia, and our marketing was so bad that we were unable to tell the truth to the people of the world. Yahya Khan has ordered कि सब लोगों को निकाल के बाहर भेज दो. When there was massacre and the Pakistan army tried from April till November, the situation, as very rightly said by General Saab, sir, let me tell you the lesson from the history, that it was Spain 711, Aqba bin Nafi and Musa bin Nusair went there and ruled many centuries. And it's exactly the same, 712, they came here in Sindh, Babul Islam, where we have Port Muhammad bin Qasim. Here the Muslims are 20 करोड़ यहाँ हैं, 25 करोड़ इंडिया में हैं, 20 करोड़ 15 करोड़ के करीब. But it was Mr. D.P. Dhar, Durga Prasad Dhar, the first Indian ambassador to Spain, advised by the then Prime Minister of India, Jawaharlal Nehru, find out the ways how they were wiped out from Spain. The Moorish were vanished from Spain. He came back after a few years and given a report of BPCR, Basic Principles Committee report. It was actually a constitutional report, but he said Bengali Punjabi controversy report. Unfortunately, we had 2 things, Zulf-e Bengal or Husn-e Punjab. And then the work started. It was horrible nights for those who were believing in one Pakistan. Our name was collaborators, Punjabi Dalal. The families, they were like anything. There was no mercy at all. Those Bengalis who were in favor of the Pakistan, they are being hanged even now. At that time, उनको कहते थे भाई ये तो अपनी, you are not faithful to the nation. Mrs. Gandhi is saying of two-nation theory, 15 August, on the 15th of August 1975, when the entire family of the Sheikh Mujibur Rahman was killed, she was taking salute at the national event of India's independence, 15th August. She was informed by the security chief, Madam Prime Minister, we have a bad news. That man with the entire family has been killed. And who killed? The Bengalis, the nation. Nobody was ready to tell him father of the nation, Jatir Pitani, Juter Pita. And he was not allowed to bury it in the Azimpura Qabristan of Dhaka. He was taken to Gopal Ganj. She is still trying कि उसकी बाकियात को लेके आ जाए. Sir, the nation of Bengal has given us 1906, the Muslim League and the Bengalis, their intellect, I salute them, because they are the one who stopped the Akhanda Bharat. Still, Indians and the Hinduttva people and RSS, they are considering, had there been no Muslim League, no Dhaka, no Sir Salimullah, there would have been a united India. But the basic thing has come from Bengal, which was Bangala before, then East Pakistan, now Bangladesh. Maybe after some time, because of the 7 sister states with the Eastern India, there can be Bangsam and something more. I would like to say just thank you, Mr. Dr. Junaid. You have taken the correct portion of the history before the masses, before the media. हम तो ये कहेंगे, फैज़ के 2 शेर अर्ज करूंगा. पहला तो ये कि हम के ठहरे अजनबी इतनी मदारातों के बाद फिर बनेंगे आशना कितनी मुलाकातों के बाद. और बीत गया हंगामे क़यामत, ज़ोर क़यामत आज भी है, और तर्क ताल्लुक़ काम ना आया, उनसे मोहब्बत आज भी है.
बहुत शुक्रिया. Thank you very much on Nabi Saab. Dr. Homa Bakai needs no introduction. I'll request Dr. Homa Bakai to kindly come and analyze.
बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया. एक जनरल, एक एडमिरल, एक एम्बेसडर और फिर एक एडवोकेट के बाद बेचारी हुमा बकाई. I'll try to sum up what has already been said. लेकिन जिन लोगों ने अब तक बात की, उन्होंने तो शायद ढाका, फॉल ऑफ ढाका होता देखा था. लेकिन मेरी जनरेशन ने और मेरी बात की जनरेशन ने फॉल ऑफ ढाका के बारे में सुना है और पढ़ा है. और दुख होता है कि बहुत दफ़ा जब पढ़ने की कोशिश की है तो गैरों का लिखा पढ़ा है या प्रोपेगेंडा पढ़ा है. तो अच्छा लगा कि डॉक्टर जुनैद ने अपने ने कोई बात कही और अब हम उसे पढ़ सकते हैं. तो शायद ये मुझे लगा कि सबसे अहम और इम्पॉर्टेंट बात है इस पूरी चीज़ में. जो फॉर्मल रिमार्क्स हैं वो आपके सामने पेश करूँगी. मैं कभी बांग्लादेश नहीं गई, मैं गवर्नमेंट सर्वेंट हूँ. 3 दफ़ा कॉन्फ्रेंसेस में इनवाइट किया गया. जितनी मुश्किल इंडिया जाने में नहीं होती, उससे ज़्यादा मुश्किल बांग्लादेश जाने में होती है. सो दैट इज़ द सिचुएशन. मोहब्बत उनके लिए शायद बाकी होगी, लेकिन ताल्लुकात आज भी नॉर्मल नहीं हैं. और किसी भी साउथ एशियन कॉन्फ्रेंस में खड़े हो जाइए, शाहिद अमीन साहब शायद इस बात का मेरे साथ अग्री भी करेंगे, जो हम पे अटैक आता है वो इंडिया से ज़्यादा अफगान्स और बांग्लादेशियों की तरफ से आता है. सो दैट इज़ द क्रक्स ऑफ द सिचुएशन एज वी स्टैंड एंड टॉक अबाउट द perhaps the saddest moment in the history of Pakistan. I'm of course both honored and humbled that Dr. Junaid asked me to review the book. And what I talk about is the book, because I don't have the rich experiences the Admiral, the Ambassador, and the Advocate and General Saab shared here. Wars in today's world are not fought on conventional fronts. So we may have the 7th largest, most battle-hardy military in the world. But in today's world, wars are fought on the diplomatic front, wars are fought on the economic front, and wars are fought on the intellectual front. And perhaps what Dr. Junaid has done is that he has provided us to the defense to fight the case of Dhaka. He's given us that. He's perhaps given us that. Because today, we are always confronted with the myths that he has identified, perhaps more than 14, and responded to them one-to-one, very articulately, with statistics and facts. One of the most prevalent myth, of course, is that Pakistani armed forces killed more than 3 million innocent Bengalis and raped 2 lakh Bengali women. This became a narrative, which is now also acknowledged by those who've done research outside Pakistan. This became a narrative because it came out first in the Soviet Union media. It was picked up by the Bangladeshi media and the Indian media, propagated, and later on Mujibur Rahman gave an interview to David Frost and sort of endorsed it, and it became the narrative to hammer and shame Pakistan. There was nothing in response from the Pakistan side, unfortunately. And that is where I say that silence is not golden. Because when silence is when you exercise silence at such times, then the narrative of the enemy or the narrative of the other takes over that vacuum. And that is exactly what happened with Bangladesh. Dr. Junaid has broken that silence. There are certain things that are extremely important here, and others have, of course, talked about it, because the book also briefly dwells on the historical construct that contributed to the making of the Bangladesh, and, of course, the Indian role in it. Shahid Amin Saab talks about how 1940 resolution hinted at it or was accommodating of it, and how Quaid-e-Azam was aware of the tensions that existed. But the historical construct is that what happened in 1916, and then later on what happened in the Chittagong massacre of 1946 was indicative of things to come. And later on, what the kind of discussions that took place inside India, many of which are quoted in the book very explicitly, but one of them that I find interesting is perhaps not in the book if I've not missed out on it, is that when Indira Gandhi was being congratulated for what she did to Pakistan, Atal Bihari Vajpayee called her the Durga Devi of India. He said, today, she has given India total protection, and nobody can attack India from the east side, the eastern side. Those were the levels of Indian insecurities that led to the creation of Bangladesh. And yes, we blame our military and we blame our political leadership. And yes, the fixation of the blame should happen to bring closure. But you cannot put aside the role of the international community and the role India had to play in the dismemberment of Pakistan. The role India played has been talked about, but let's look at what the international community was doing at that time. This is also a time when Pakistan was acting as a bridge state between United States of America and China. And the latest interview that has been given by Henry Kissinger to The Atlantic magazine says that an implicit understanding was given that Bangladesh would be granted independence. And there was no public diplomacy on it because they did not want to embarrass Pakistan. So I think what has been done right now, what has Dr. Junaid initiated, is just the tip of the iceberg. A lot more research has to go into what really happened, where we put aside emotions and bring out facts. And I hope what you've started gives momentum to more. These are, of course, I mean, I also want to point out to the fact that in the chapter on the way forward, the book brings out what is happening to the Biharis, because that is a question that comes out. It talks about the 2008 verdict by the Bangladeshi court, a very good verdict, where Biharis were given the citizenship of Bangladesh. But what is the status of Biharis today in Bangladesh? They stand economically, politically, and socially marginalized. They're a completely marginalized entity. They still live in camps. They are not a part of the mainstream, and nobody knocks Bangladesh on human rights atrocities there. If Pakistan can perhaps do something about it, my view on the situation is that we have enough on our plate to do anything on that particular issue. And finally, with humbly a few critique on the book. The book is very quiet on the Hamudur Rahman report. Hamudur Rahman report is a very, very important document. It is a part of our modern history. And if not Dr. Junaid, I think somebody else who writes on this, maybe the ambassador one day, would tell us that what was in that report and why the annexures of that report have not been released to date. And I think that is something extremely important that needs to look at. Of course, the book squarely blames the political parties for it. Zulfikar Ali Bhutto's name is mentioned several times. Ambassador Shahid Amin also talked about Zulfikar Ali Bhutto's role, which eventually led to the situation. My submission here is that yes, I think he had a role to play, but he exploited the situation politically to his advantage, as perhaps any politician would do. But the fact that the things had come to that point, we are all responsible for that. And that is where the blame should be put, instead of playing the blame game, so to say. Somewhere along the line, the author, I also think, contradicts himself. And because I was bringing this up, I thought I will give Dr. Junaid the exact page. It is page 229, when the recognition of Bengal happened in 1974. I think Pakistan did not have a choice. In spite of the fact that Bhutto did it, and he did it in the OIC summit, this was something Pakistan could not escape. And the fact that the relationship has not normalized between the two countries is indicative of the fact that normalization has not happened. But at the end, I would actually like to say that I think it's a huge contribution to modern history. And it may not be important for people who've lived 71, but it is very important for the coming generations to have a factual understanding of what really happened. So congratulations, Dr. Junaid, and congratulations, KCFR, for launching it. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Huma Bakai. As rightly pointed out, जंग मुख्तलिफ फ्रंट्स पे लड़ी जाती है. मीडिया वॉर इंडिया की इतनी स्ट्रॉन्ग आज भी है. जब हम मीडिया को बड़े माइन्यूटली और दुनिया देखती है, अभी हाल ही में सर्जिकल स्ट्राइक्स इंडिया ने कहा और सारी दुनिया ने माना. मैं तो उस वक्त के बाहर थी, सब BBC हो, CNN हो, CBC हो, कैनेडियन TV, सब बता रहे थे. लेकिन बात को उन्हें हालांकि विड्रॉ करना पड़ा, लेकिन हमारा मीडिया कुछ हम ही से सवाल कर रहा था उस बारे में. तो कहने का मकसद ये कि आप जब बैनुल-अक़वामी या इंटरनेशनल टॉपिक्स पे बात करते हैं तो मीडिया को और इंटरनेशनल कंसिडरेशंस को रख के अपनी पॉलिसी बनाते हैं. I don't understand, it is always said, when there are challenges, there are opportunities. हमारे politicians क्यों वो अपॉर्चुनिटीज़ इग्नोर करते हैं अपने मुल्क को बढ़ाने की, लेकिन बाज़ एनालिस्ट कहते हैं पैसा बनाने की यहाँ पे लोग अपॉर्चुनिटी मिस नहीं करते. Anyway, I'll invite Dr. Junaid now for vote of thanks. Dr. Junaid, the author of this great book.
Admiral Shahid Karimullah Sahab, General Moinuddin Haider Sahab, Ambassador Shahid Amin Sahab, Nabi Sahab, Dr. Huma Bakai, Ahsan Bhai, Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, Assalamu alaikum. I am humbled by what I have heard my reviewers presenting about the book. I'm very grateful to you all, sir. I hope this humble contribution to Pakistan will help Pakistan develop a narrative. The basic reason why I took it upon myself to write this book was Pakistan has no narrative. India had, Bangladesh had, and they have been saying this narrative for the last 45 years. And what has been my lovely country's response? Keep quiet and hope this will pass. But it has not passed. It has continued to grow and grow and grow and grow. I was studying in intermediate, and I was very active in student politics, was the general secretary of my college union, then president, then became chairman of the Karachi Students' Council. And I was seeing what was happening in East and West Pakistan. I had an occasion to know East Pakistan quite well. also lost family and friends in East Pakistan, so there was already a pain there. I would like to tell you this, that my father, who died on the 17th of November 1988, was a very painful day. My mother died on 12th of March 2004, which was also a very painful day. But every year, December 16, I feel more pain than what I have ever felt on both these two occasions. It is more. And it continued to build in me. Last year, the Bangladesh government started hanging, or 2 years ago, in 2014, they started the International Crimes Tribunal and started hanging. Who? Those Bengalis that had supported Pakistan. Some of them I knew very well, and I had also had friends with them. They had nothing to do with whatever had happened in 1971. So I thought and looked around. I read dozens of books written by Pakistani authors. They're all kamsi kamsa, not adequately researched, and they were not responding to what the Indians and the Bangladeshis were saying. Then I took it upon myself that I shall help develop Pakistan, the narrative, in response to what the Bangladeshis and the Indians have been saying for the last 45 years. This is what this book basically does. I would like to also say two more things about myself. One, I surrendered a Canadian passport that will never leave this country. I have two sons who are abroad who ask me, Papa, what is your plan? What is your retirement plan? Son, is very simple. I shall continue to work hard till the day I can, and I hope when I die, somebody will be here to take me to Sakhi Hassan. Till that time, I'm here, and we'll fight it out. Now, let me come to the basic narrative. There are 14 basic acquisitions which Bangladeshis and the Indians have been putting forward. And I think it is necessary to know what is the truth. And the truth, as stated by the Bangladeshis, as stated by the Indians, and stated by the Western authors. And I have quoted more than 500 references in the book. Let me start with the most negative one. The Pakistan Armed Forces killed 3 million Bengalis. They say that and we keep quiet. This is totally wrong. Why? How did it start? It has been referred briefly about it, but I'll take a minute or a minute and a half on the subject. Pravda, which was the news agency of Soviet Union, the great friend of India, had written an article in December 22, 1971, that 3 million people have died in East Pakistan, as if the reporter was sitting and counting. On 8th of January, Bhutto released Mujib. He arrived in Dhaka on the 9th. He met Tajuddin at the airport and asked how many people died. Tajuddin said 3 lakh. Subsequently, there was a Robert Frost interview and an interview with Pravda, in which Mujib then quoted, instead of 3 lakhs, he said 3 million. He and Tajuddin had an argument subsequently. I told you 3 lakhs, you said 3 million, how come? But anyway, the government of Bangladesh established a commission, and that commission worked diligently, as long as the Bangladeshis could work, to look for mass graves. This commission comprised of officers from the Army, Air Force, Navy, Police, Rangers, And what did they find? Not a single mass grave. And they then said, well, what do we do now? So they gave an advertisement in the press that anybody who comes and talks about it will give 1,000 taka. 1,000 taka was a lot of money for a poor country. How many people came forward? They had a total figure of 38,000. And that 38,000 was exaggerated to 50,000. Now they kept quiet after that. You have not heard this figure from 1973-74 to 2010-14. They all kept quiet because they had been proven wrong. So what about the women? They again investigated, again gave an advertisement, and now they said that we will give 3,000 taka. The total number that came forward was 2,680. What crap? You made it 250,000. And this has gone on and on. 93,000 soldiers surrendered. No. There were only 34,000 combatant troops. Who were the rest? They were non-combatants. The cooks, the paramedics, the doctors, the logistics staff. About 11,000. Who were the rest? The civilian officers, their wives, their children, the drivers, the cooks, the chowkidars. Why were they handed over as prisoners of war? Today, giving an interview at Dunya TV today, I said that क्योंकि बंदा बशर है तो कभी कभी सही बात भी कर लेता है. और वो बात क्या थी कि उन्होंने कहा we have to be handed over to the Indians as prisoners of war, otherwise they would have been killed. Now let's talk of the fourth out of the 14, and I will move on. This was a homegrown war of liberation that was fought by the Bangladeshis. No, it wasn't. Indians have started interfering in East Pakistan as far back as 1948, when we had this issue on the language crisis, and we made a bloody hash of it. And we agreed to have Bengali as the second language in 1956. We could have had it in 1948. India exploited that situation to the maximum. Mujib asked Hussain Shahid Sohrawardi in 1956 at a big public gathering, "Sir, should we not separate East Pakistan to become a separate country?" He got help from Hussain Shahid Sohrawardi publicly. And Hussain Shahid Sohrawardi also said to him, "Why are you listening to the Indians?" From then on, this matter had been going on. Some of the points that the Bangladeshis mention about exploitation are also correct. There was no political party after Liaquat Ali Khan's death, except the Jamaat Islami, whom we all know has a very limited kind of an approach. So we had no political connections between these two wings. The bureaucracy, Shahid Amin Sahab ne given a very good example of what was the position. But however, let me tell you, there was never a Bengali chief secretary. There was never a Bengali home secretary. There was never a Bengali finance secretary or a Bengali planning secretary. There was an issue. They were not regarded as fit for coming into the army for a long time. But the worst of it all, let me tell you this. The West Pakistani business community and industrialists had established 50 jute mills, sugar mills, textile mills, steel re-rolling mills, garment factories, what have you. But who was running them? Majority of it was being run by West Pakistanis. And the Bengalis were at lower echelons or as labor. And all of this was adding up. And of course, we were fueling it. And India was taking full advantage. Created RA in 1968 with the sole objective of dismembering Pakistan. And India put maximum amount of resources at the disposal of RA and the Indian Army. General Manekshaw asked for money and Indira Gandhi gave that money. Let me go on. We talk about the 1970 elections. Sir, I would like to bring to your notice. You remember there was a big cyclone in East Pakistan in October 1970. Thousands of people had been killed. I remember as to how the Pakistan television was showing the ravaging that that cyclone and flood had done. I think a 40-foot wave had hit East Pakistan. This is in October. And December 7, how intelligent were we that we had the elections. Isn't this the most stupid thing to do? Let it settle down. And we call it the most fair election. I've gone into the details. No. The maximum amount of rigging took place in East Pakistan. The non-supporter or non-Awami Leaguers were not allowed to come and vote. And Awami League candidates' ballot boxes were stuffed. We were stupid. We let that also happen. To compound this, we had this situation of continuing to delay the holding of the National Assembly session. Now comes the 1st of March. Ladies and gentlemen, remember this. On 1st of March, Mujib ordered Awami League to do what? To destroy powerhouses. It's an actual speech. Destroy powerhouses, destroy power lines, destroy communication system, destroy bridges, loot the food stores and food storage ration shops, burn down the factories, loot the banks, don't allow a single penny to leave East Pakistan. And the Awami League miscreants did all of this from 1st of March to the 25th of March. And the army action, Operation Searchlight, started on the 26th of March. We forget that thousands of people had already been killed by that time. And they were not Bengalis, they were Biharis, they were West Pakistanis. The army action took place. The Hamood Rahman Commission gives a figure of 26,000 people dead in the Operation Searchlight. It is not in the nature of Pakistan Army to do raping. They have had seen operations in Karachi. We have also seen operations in Swat. Never there has been a complaint. It's not the mindset of the Pakistan Army to do that. And then on April 7th, 1971, Mukti Bahini is unleashed on Pakistan. What is Mukti Bahini? 175,000 Bengalis and 50,000 trained Indian soldiers. And I'm not saying this. It's Indian generals saying this. It is Indian Ra saying this. There are 10 people who have said this. And these people had trained Mukti Bahini for 7 months. Whose equipment did they have? Indian, Soviet, Israeli. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I would like you to think that the similar kind of thing was happening in Karachi till a few months ago. There is a man who would clap and Karachi would come to shut. Then you clap again and Karachi would become alive. How much looting? How much target killing? How much, all kinds of things have happened. And you and I have seen this from late 1980s. Exactly the same thing was happening in East Pakistan. The organization structure of Mukti Bahini is exactly the same as Muttahida today. Exactly the same. Equipments are also the same. The behavior of the government of Pakistan is also exactly the same. We continue to say, we need proof of that, we need proof of this and proof of that, and we are not sure. They have even filed that case of the huge cache of arms and ammunition that was captured from 9/0, saying what? We can't find the culprits. Now, this is what brings me to the saddest part of it, is that we have not learned from history. The organization of the BLA, the organization of the BRA is exactly the same. And now the RA has been mandated to do exactly the same thing in the rest of Pakistan. And this needs to be clearly understood. I would like to talk about the role of Bhutto for a minute. Let's not, Shahid Sahab has also dwelt on it, Dr. Huma Baqai has also mentioned, but I would like you to think about something else. Have you ever thought, when did Bangladesh come about? Not on December 16, 1971, not on January 9, when Mujibur Rahman landed in Dhaka, not in January 22, when UK and United States recognized Bangladesh. It came about when Bhutto recognized it in February 1974. And he had the whole charade of the OIC summit. I was present in Lahore when this Muammar Gaddafi spoke for an hour and 45 minutes in Arabic and nobody understood a single word. And we were told that there are so many guests here and we have to behave ourselves and we have to be honorable to our guests, etc. But what was the bottom line of it? Had Bhutto not recognized it, East Pakistan would have never become Bangladesh. And why did Bhutto do it? Because Bhutto's own government was not being legitimized. He had never been elected as the president or the prime minister of Pakistan. He had won 82 or 84 seats in West Pakistan. Unless and East Pakistan becomes a separate country, his own government is not legitimized. China spoke to us about it, and China then accepted Bangladesh recognized it in August 1974. And after that recognition, Bangladesh could become a member of the United Nations. Ladies and gentlemen, Taiwan is not a country even today because China doesn't recognize it. South Sudan became South Sudan because Sudan recognized it. East Timor became Timor because Indonesia recognized it. Mr. Bhutto did all of this, I believe, to legitimize his own self and his own government. Let I come to my last portion, the way forward. Having said all of this, having exploded all their narratives, it is incumbent on Pakistan to make friends with Bangladesh, come what may. Our foreign policy should not be regime-centric. We have to continue to plod along and make friends with Bangladesh. However, having said that, there are two issues we should keep in mind. One is the International Crimes Tribunal Act that they have passed. They've already hanged 26, and they want to hang another 42. We should continue to bring this to the knowledge of the world, which we are not doing, and the wrongs that are being done, the act itself, the way the judges are appointed, the way the prosecution takes place, the way the witnesses are handled, the way the prisoner is not allowed to present his case, no witnesses are allowed, It is this we need to bring out. And to stick to their narrative, the Bangladesh government of Hasina Wajid has now come up with the denial of the War of Liberation Act. Denial of the Liberation War Act, like similar to the Holocaust Act. Anybody who denies any one of these narratives can be convicted, can be imprisoned, can be fined, and can be hanged. Today, I can say in front of my name, under my name, MBA, MA Economics, PhD, convicted to be hanged by Bangladesh, and I will be very proud of it. Having said this, even then we have to continue to bring out these fallacies in front of the world, and we cannot stop. I hope that what process I've been able to make some humble contribution to start will go on further. And what Dr. Huma Bakai and what Ambassador Shahid Amin said, in terms of continuing with this work and effort, inshallah, I will devote time, effort, and resources to move in that direction. Gentlemen and Dr. Huma, I'm again very grateful to you for having been so kind to have taken out time to review the book and to present it in a very succinct and in a very nice manner. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm grateful to you for having come here today and having made this program a success. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Junaid. We are all very proud of you, especially Karachi Council of Foreign Relations should especially thank you for this. And therefore now it's time for mementos. Secretary General, Karachi Council of Foreign Relations, Mr. Zubairi, will present the memento to Dr. Junaid Ahmed. Zubairi sir? Zubairi sir? mic ready? ऊपर के लिए I think it's time for tea, and high tea will be served. So ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for coming and listening to this, the inauguration of this book. Thank you. I hope you'll buy the book and you'll read it and you'll do the analysis as well. Thank you.
सर है मैंने लगवाई नहीं है
अस्सलामुअलैकुम कैसे सर आप आइए सर आइए
कैसे हैं भाई?
अल्लाह का करम
आपने कहा टाइम दे
अस्सलाम वालेकुम माशाअल्लाह